Harisunker. I am a clinical psychologist, currently in private practice. I have a master's in psychology from the University of Johannesburg, as well as a master's in anthropology. I've been in private practice for about 2 years now, and I have done hospital work before that for 2 years. I've been asked to comment on sexual abuse as well as childcare workers that work with sexual abuse. Firstly, the signs of sexual abuse. There are various different signs. So there's different presentations, and this depends on the age especially. So there's a difference between teenagers and between children. So very briefly, I will go through them and then I'll explain them more in depth. So they are more easily noticeable in younger children. You will start to see that children will know things or start displaying certain behaviors that are inappropriate to their age. They might engage in bedwetting, which is a regressive type of behavior, which is something that's also noticed across all ages. Children might suck their thumbs, wet their bed, struggle to dress themselves. They might be more clingy, so in terms of attachment, they might cling more to the caregiver or less to the caregiver than before. They may have poor boundaries, so they won't know to not touch or to not take things from other people. And they will also struggle in terms of their emotional regulation. So they might struggle to with their anger, they might have outbursts, so things like that might be seen. There might also be an increase or a decrease in school performance, especially with regards to language and maths. With teenagers, we notice that they may have poor self-image, they might become self-destructive, so engaging in self-harming behaviors. They may be manipulative. This can also be noticed for small children as well. They might engage in toxic relationships that are not beneficial or healthy for them, and they may become dependent. So firstly, one of the signs that we notice is withdrawal. Children and teenagers both, at times when they have been abused, become withdrawn. So they withdraw away from people, caregivers, from friends, from school, from activities that they used to enjoy. They may distrust people, especially adults. So especially if you notice that they don't talk as much, are quieter, or show signs of distrust, then that would be a sign that would be applicable for sexual abuse. We do see suicidality in children and in teenagers, where they would express that they want to die, or they try to kill themselves, or they express plans to do so or intent to do so. There's also a sense of despondency. You will notice that children and teenagers alike may become quiet and seem sad and even irritable. They may also engage in self-harming behaviors, where they cut themselves or pinch themselves or hit themselves, pull their hair, scratch themselves. They may engage in anxiety behaviors such as biting their nails or itching a lot as well. In terms of the inappropriate behaviors that children show, there may be inappropriate touching of themselves and others. They may show an interest in sex, or sexual interest that is inappropriate to their age. They may also have unusual sexual knowledge and behavior, again inappropriate to their age. Children and teenagers alike may refuse to go to school and refuse to do their schoolwork. I've also mentioned that sometimes the performance in school increases, and this is because the child may completely divert away from any social interactions and into their academic functioning. You will notice that with children, most especially that are bathed by their caregivers, they might not let their caregivers, adults, wash them or help them to clean themselves or help them to dress. They may become reactive and shout and hit and scream. They may become more secretive. You might notice more aggression in children that were quieter before. And you might also notice some restrictive, repetitive movements, such as rocking or biting their nails or headbanging, that might come out. Regressive behaviors, like I've mentioned before, would be things like bedwetting or sucking their thumb. Smaller children might look to breastfeed again, looking for blankets or toys that are safe for them, because this is what the child is looking for in these times. Signs of emotional neglect are quite similar, because neglect is kind of seen as an abuse, because it's removal of affection and emotions. A child would become withdrawn or disinhibited. Disinhibited meaning that they would become more friendly towards strangers, might walk with strangers, talk with strangers, hug, hold people that they don't know or that they hadn't done to before. They might become reactive, which is aggressive or oppositional, and they might display conduct problems such as fire setting, stealing, truanting, arguing behaviors, defiant behaviors. They may show trust issues, so they would withdraw from people, engage less with people, and make comments such as they can't have friends at school or there's an impact to their friends at school because of trust issues. Some children might display perfectionism, so if they feel that they are not being nurtured in a way that is healthy and that's for them to grow. Again, this is not a conscious process, but something that a child reacts to defensively. So perfectionism will be related to school or with other more obsessional compulsive behaviors such as ordering things or being neat in their schoolwork or neat in how they dress or ensuring that the house is clean. So those kinds of behaviors might happen. We also see poor self-esteem that is quite linked to emotional neglect, and this is also there for sexual abuse as well, where a child does not believe in themselves. They might hate themselves, they might not pay attention to themselves, and be caring or there for other people more than themselves. We also do see restricted emotions and blunted affect, also a sign of sexual abuse as well as emotional neglect. Restricted emotions means that a child will stop themselves from feeling or from showing their emotions to other people, also linked back to trust. In terms of blunted affect, this is for more serious cases or for children that really do struggle with emotions and having a lack of validation for their emotions. They might have almost a cut off feel to them in terms of their emotions. There will also be self-blame and blame of other people. So again, this depends on the type of abuse and neglect that we are seeing. It also depends on the child and the child's personality and the conditions. So all of these contribute to these signs that we see. So they're not always uniform and the same thing. So they're unique to each child. When a child blames themselves, they might become depressed and anxious. When they blame other people, they can become angry and reactive. They may isolate themselves and have difficulty making and keeping friends. They may also be hypervigilant, and this is noticed for many types of abuse across ages, where a child will be hypervigilant, watching their environment to check for people's cues, to check how people react to them. They may be very sensitive to rejection as well because of that. The impact of abuse and of neglect on children is that really depending on the severity, however, again, like I said, the uniqueness of the case, the conditions, the personality of the child, as well as if any support is available. It really depends on the perception of the child, and if there's support, then it really, really helps. Our childcare workers that are there for these children are invaluable for these times. It will impact, no matter what. Any type of abuse, any type of neglect, doesn't matter the age of the child or the teenager or the adult, does impact on people, impacting on attachment issues, impacting on the relationship to people, and trust issues, including social and romantic, as well as occupational functioning. So this is in school and at work later on. The dynamic of the self and the other in the interaction will be impacted on, especially on personality development. It will impact on self-esteem, which can either be elevated or decreased. The child and the teenager will grow up to be hypervigilant, where they are living in survival mode. They may engage in self-harm and or suicidal attempts, which may or may not be successful. They may be prone to depression and depressive symptoms like despondency, lack of pleasure in activities, feeling very guilty about things, feeling despondent. They may struggle with their eating, with their appetite, with their sleeping. They may become very anxious, and they may engage in bullying or be bullied by other people. So there are various types of impact that we need to take into account of. However, I think it's important at this point to thank and acknowledge the childcare workers that have been there, have always been there for these children, who are there to watch out for these signs. And like I've said, they're very difficult signs to find, because each child is unique and each child has different presentations in different environments. So we know that these childcare workers care very, very much, and they are there time in and time out for these children who are living in difficult conditions at time, who have to go through care, who have to go through caregivers that are not very caring and are not always supportive. And the childcare workers have to also help the child through this. So I want to thank them from myself, from a professional who has to work with these kinds of cases and who has to work with childcare workers, for their care, for their support, for all of the efforts that they put in, because this is not work that is easy. And their compassion is invaluable and extremely important to us as a nation, especially during these difficult times that we are experiencing now with the pandemic of the coronavirus. Our childcare workers that are out there, I want to thank you, and I want to say that we think of you and we hope that you continue in strength, to give strength and to give courage and support to these children that are out there that are struggling. And I thank you, and I hope all of the best. And I'm really, really appreciative of being a part of this as well. So thank you very much.